Croeso. It's Friday, it's time for Dragonheart. Well, there's not supposed to be any non-essential travel at the moment, and yet we went down to London twice in 4 days. It was essential because we had a heck of a week on the road. Firstly, we expected a tough test at Sutton, but it turned out to be more a case of Sutton dressed as lamb, as we came out with a really impressive draw. And then, in midweek, well, it all felt a bit like a really bad first date. We were given some problems by a dodgy Barnet, but the evening ended with Flowers being discarded. Tim Flowers, the Barnet manager, of course, attacked his players after the match and then stormed out. Who do you think he is? Piers Morgan? We've got plenty lined up today, of course. Chay Long and I will be talking about those two matches. We'll also hear from Darren Wright, and we'll, in the course of our discussion of those games, pay tribute to the mighty Elliott Durrell, who this week really converted himself into a dog of war. So, let's get moving. It's time for Dragonhearts.
The other side, and you're listening to the Dragonheart Radio.
Well, hello and welcome to Dragonheart. I'm Mark Griffiths. I'm joined by the invisible Chay Long. As you can see, he's here in backdrop, but is not able to appear to us due to the mysterious ways of the internet. Still, you can enjoy that celebratory scene, and you can still hear him. Hi, Chay.
Hi, how's it going, Mark? Unfortunately, I don't have my PC, so I'll have to do it by phone today, and I don't like the way I'm looking. So it's the Wrexham lads celebrating a goal against Barnet.
Nice. Well, I mean, if I'd realised that I could absent myself by not liking how I was looking, I wouldn't have appeared this season in the first place. But anyway, I've managed to set myself up with as much light straight on my face as possible. So I got a sort of red and yellow, like Partick Thistle shirt vibe going on at the moment. Or if you're one of them hipster types, Lens, nice French football team shirt.
Partick Thistle, love it.
I used to love their stickers. When I was a kid and you had Panini stickers, I used to love their kits looking at that. I'm not sure if I've ever got any other interaction at all with Partick Thistle apart from that. But anyway. Well, of course, to those of you who are listening in traditional podcast manner, yeah, you're thinking, what the heck are they talking about? So maybe we should push on. We'll go over the last two matches of the week, a satisfying week at the office, shall we say. And we'll also be hearing from Darren Wright, an old Wrexham favourite of the 80s. So let's get moving. It's time to get Dragonhearting.
I'm Kerry Evans, and you're listening to Dragonheart Radio Show.
Yeah, so a good week for Wrexham, really. 2 away games down in London. Let's not underestimate the effect just of travelling. I mean, quite frankly, you know, it's as the commentator at Barnet said, they spent a lot of time stuck on a bus in the last few days. But 2 clean sheets, 4 points, and firstly, a draw away against, I mean, surely at the moment the best team in the division. It wasn't pretty, but it was effective, I think, wasn't it, Jay?
Yeah, it wasn't pretty. It was a bit of a dull game, yeah. But as we both said before the game, we would have took a draw. So a draw against what is a top quality side, I'm very happy about. And in fact, I thought we got the better of them. I thought if anyone was going to score, it was going to be us. So yeah, I'm really happy.
Totally, I thought the same way. I know they had that headed chance right at the end, but what else did they have? I mean, for me, we've gone away to a very strong team. We've kept a good clean sheet. They've not troubled us. Has any team troubled us less than that? Barnet troubled us more. And quite frankly, I thought it was revealing when you heard their manager, Matt Gray, talking afterwards. He was really pleased with the point. He knew that this was a game that was not going their way, that was difficult for them. Yeah, we didn't create a lot. I agree, but we created, I thought, a bit more in terms of meaningful opportunities than they did. And yeah, I think it's just a cracking result, to be honest.
Well, definitely, and I think we could have been 1-0 up quite early. It was a 1-on-1 with Reece Johnson, from what I remember, and that would have really changed the game, I think. But as we both said in the preview podcast, it's one of them. If you can get away, if you can go to Sutton, which, as we both said, they're the best team in the league without doubt at the moment. You know, they're 2 points clear of Hartlepool with 3 games in hand. So that says a hell of a lot, and we've took 4 points from them this season, which is very promising.
Yeah, absolutely. They just didn't get going against us at all. I think, okay, maybe our midfield was a little deep, which meant we didn't get enough support up to the strikers, but then you still got a chance in that approach because you do leave 2 strikers up the pitch. And there's a flurry of chances late on for us, just before their chance as well. And yeah, we looked in control, we looked tidy. The defence was excellent. I mean, Kelleher, again, absolutely fantastic, wasn't he? The way he was bossing that penalty area. Although it'd be unfair of me to single him out without also saying French and Carrington either side. Spot on.
Oh, definitely. Kelleher's a machine, isn't he? At the moment, you could say he's the best centre-half in the league.
Yeah.
The way he's playing, he's constantly consistent. And what impresses me for a man of his size, he's actually got a decent pace, isn't he?
Yes. There was that one, wasn't it, in the first half where we had a set piece and he gone up for it. And then they broke away with Adjiboy, who's quick. And Kelleher managed to catch him up, slide in and tackle. I thought that was fabulous. I mean, really, fair play to him. I mean, yeah, he's settled superbly, hasn't he?
Oh, he's really, really good. And I'm really glad we've got this takeover now, because I think, the likes of him and Reece Johnson, if we don't go up this season, I think teams in the league in league football will be looking at them and their performances. So I'm happy that we've got some sort of, well, not 100% security with the takeover, but we've got that bit more of a barter, haven't we? These players keep them at National League level or at Wrexham at League 2. So he's been absolutely fantastic.
It's exactly what's been in my mind as well. Absolutely right. We are a club that, well, I mean, for sure, everyone at our level, almost all the players will be on 1-year contracts. And there's always that danger that we'll lose players, either because they just want to step up to something higher, because they've caught the eye, or just because we can't come to an agreement quickly enough. For example, Davis Keeler-Dunn in the summer, who's gone up to Oldham, and he would have been a cracking player for us this season. But now, hopefully, we can hang on to players, not only because we can maybe have a bit more financial strength and get those deals done, but also because, you can sell the project, can't you? So Kelleher, like you say, I mean, I would expect Football League teams to be looking at him. He's played his career in the Football League till he's come to us. But you can say to him, if we don't go up this year, right, you're part of a big project here. We're going to bring in a bit of quality in the summer. Don't you want to be part of this, going up the leagues? And as he's clearly enjoying himself here and enjoying being part of what we're doing, we've got a good chance of hanging on to players like him, whereas previously, we probably wouldn't, would we?
No, that's just the nature of the National League, though, isn't it, as a whole? I don't think it's not uniquely a Wrexham problem, is it, that the good players just go up the leagues, because it's quite cheap for these League 1 and League 2 clubs to take a punt on a conference player. And you never know, you might find a Jamie Vardy. Yeah. So, exactly. It's good that we now have this sort of thing, that we have Rob and Ryan who can sell sort of something like, you'll become a club legend of a town. And if you get us to League 2, you're going to be known as a club legend, aren't you? So it's nice to have that sort of reassurance, but it's still not a given that we keep all these players in the summer anyway, even with a big takeover. But yeah, one thing I'd like to talk about as well is Durrell. I think he's been excellent the last few games, isn't he?
Oh man, he's just been a different player, and I don't mean that in a sort of someone's not been playing well now suddenly they are. Genuinely, is a different type of player in my eyes. He's just gone to war, isn't he? He's just fighting for everything. And again, I'm not saying he wasn't before, but I think our conception from the first time he had with us was that he's a sort of bit of a luxury player, a creative player. He was our first player guest season on Dragonheart, and I really enjoyed talking to him about his move back. And I was really struck by how he didn't talk like a luxury player. He was talking about how he's a fighter and how in training he hates losing even in training, and he's a battler, and that he'd like to be playing in midfield and doesn't like necessarily to play in the wing, but people keep putting him there and he doesn't really like it that much. And in these last 2 games, I think we've really seen it. I mean, when we played him centrally, because we have sometimes this season, he's tended to be used a bit more behind the strikers. If he's been a bit deeper, he's tended to be trying to get forwards and hasn't really done that midfield shift, I would say. I'm not criticising him. I'm saying that's what his instruction clearly was. And it hasn't totally gone for him, frankly. Whereas these last 2 games, he's been playing more as a genuine central midfielder. And my God, I mean, he's a fighter. He's fighting away for everything. He's delivering exactly what he said in that interview. He's winning tackles. He's covering a hell of a lot of ground. He's winning I've got to say, a good portion of competitive headers for a little guy. He's a warrior. I'm really going to enjoy the last 2 games from him.
It's nice to see, isn't it? Especially with, we've got Jarvis and we've got keeping him out the side, and I think he's been excellent as well.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see Durrell show us something a little bit different. Because as you said, I think a lot of people think he's a luxury player at times. My criticism of times he would try and maybe do the spectacular rather than be basic, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So that used to be my main criticism, but again, he's completely changed as a player, and that must be something they've worked on in the training ground, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting to me as well that actually his creative side wasn't quite right. In those 2 games, I would say, although he did score the goal at Barnet, which we'll get onto, he did get some positions where he could do what he likes to do and didn't get the passing quite right. But the value of his legwork in midfield and the fact that he was playing as a fighting midfielder is something that's very, very valuable. And then when you put that alongside Jordan Davis, who we've talked about as being an attacking midfielder or a creator, but in both these games, particularly the Sutton game, I didn't think he was quite as prominent against Barnet. But in the Sutton game, I mean, he put in a proper fighting defensive shift. Those 3 midfielders put in a hell of a lot of work, and I was very impressed with that. And I don't intend to be lapsing back into this sort of cliched Jordan Davis is a delicate soul who needs to be protected in midfield anymore, because he really rolled his sleeves up and gave as good as he got there.
Oh, 100%. He had a fantastic. He had a really solid game against Sutton. To be honest with you, Mark, I can't really say anyone on the pitch who had a really bad game against Sutton, because even though it was a draw, and I never really celebrate draws like a win, it sort of felt like a win in some regards, because going away to Sutton, can you think off the top of your head the last time someone beat Sutton, really? It seems to be a rare occurrence. They were on a 5-game winning streak, weren't they, before us?
I think the last loss was in the trophy at home to Woking, but I don't think they played a full-strength team. I'm not 100% sure on that. They're very strong. They've come back and won again in midweek. They are the form side at the moment. And we've nullified them. Like I said, I think it just sums it up in a way. Their manager was really happy that they drew 0-0 at home against us. He was really happy with the performance in which they created 1 chance, really. But that's a hell of a compliment to us, to be fair, isn't it, I think?
Yeah, and as we've both said a lot this season, if we carry on performing like that against the top sides, and we say we avoid losing, like against your Hartlepools and against your Suttons, it's positive. If you just get a point on the board against these teams, it will secure your playoffs. You'll definitely be in the playoffs at the end of the season. Sorry, I got tongue-tied there. But exactly, then you have to have the pressure of beating teams like Barnet as well, like we did. We'll get onto that in a bit. But yeah, at the moment, I'm very happy with Wrexham. I'm really happy. So with that Sutton game, what was your thoughts in a nutshell coming out on the end of it?
Never mind the entertainment, feel the result. I think that's my one sentence summary. Yeah, a dull 0-0 away to a top team is a cracking point, and as you rightly say, it then meant that as long as we could cash in with the next away game, that it's a good week. And we did that, I reckon. Might be time to move on to the Barnet game, do you reckon?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So after this, we'll talk about our midweek victory.
I'm Reese Johnson, and you're listening to the Dragonheart radio show.
Yeah, so as we said before the break, we needed to follow up that excellent point at Sutton with a win at Barnet. Barnet, of course, in the most hideous form you could possibly imagine. And we did. Again, let's not pretend it was entertaining or terribly pretty, but again, I don't think that matters. It's a results game, and that was a very, very good week.
Yeah, 4 points from them 2 games. Very happy. Well, going into Barnet, it was a complete opposite to how I was thinking in Sutton. Sutton game, I was thinking, as long as we walk away with a good performance or a solid performance and avoid losing, then that's a good result against Sutton. But on the flip side, Barnet, I hate saying this, it was a must-win, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And we did that.
I mean, certainly, if you don't win that game, you've dropped points compared to the other sides. I mean, that's one way of looking at a league, isn't it? You know, how many points did you drop against each team? And there'll be plenty of teams at the top end who will be cashing in on Barnet. We'd already dropped 2 points at home to them. We needed to win away, and we did so. And it was, like I said, I'm not going to say spectacular. And I'm sure some people would have looked at Barnet's form and thought, well, we should just be dancing all over them. But to be fair, there's lots of different ways to get relegated. And, you know, Barnet have got enough decent players to put a performance in. I think they reacted after their last home game. They were horrific. And they put in a good effort, especially in the second half. You have to beat the players in front of you. Your opposition are entitled to play well. And Barnet did play by their standards well. And we had to show a bit of grit in the second half. But the first half was a sort of odd affair, wasn't it? I felt we were in control. I mean, they didn't create anything. But I wasn't sure a goal was coming for us either, really.
Well, not really much. I can't really remember much from the first half, to be honest, apart from the goal.
But we had that, when I do that, I'm a bit focused on chances because I make notes for writing up the match report if it's an away game, and then for doing the highlights of the games. And I can tell you, I did not make many notes in the first half. It was that shot Jordan Davis had after 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Then the shot Jordan Davis had on the turn after 7 minutes, and the keeper made a terrific tip over. And then nothing till the goal. And then after that, there was the free kick into the box by Young, which was sort of prodded out, and French drove it back in the goal mouth, and it was clear there wasn't really a chance as such. And that was it in the first half. So between that early chance of Jordan Davis and the goal, I made no notes. There was nothing in terms of actual chances. But when the goal came, well, it was worth the wait, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a beautifully worked goal as well. What I really liked about the most about that goal, which is a bit weird, apart from the strike, look, goal was amazing, but wrong. But Kwame Thomas's hold-up play, then the layoff was beautiful. And does he even miss from long-range strikes very often? Young, does he? He barely ever missed.
2014, I think.
Yeah, he just puts his laces through it.
Yeah,
and it always just ends up in the same place. It sort of looked like the Wealdstone goal, didn't it, a little bit? And he's one excellent player, isn't he?
Oh, it was one hell of what a beautiful hit from behind the goal. You really saw what a pure strike of the ball it was. It was just bang, and because the ball's not spinning or doing anything, it's just moving in a high trajectory, straight line into the top corner. And I said in the podcast, he had so little to aim at, didn't he? The penalty area was crowded, and you know, generally when you go for power into a crowded penalty area, somebody's going to get a block on it. But he had the little letterbox at the top. He had about a foot to play with it that's over people's heads, and he just banged straight in there. Oh, it was a fabulous strike, wasn't it? But it was funny, actually. On the live stream, they changed cameras when Thomas was holding her up and went in closer. And so when he laid it back, you couldn't see who was laying it back to. And I was sort of thinking, okay, someone's going to try and hit it here, but that's a difficult finish. And then the moment it left his foot, I thought, you couldn't see who it was because you could just see his feet coming into the frame. But the moment you saw his foot, you thought, and the way it started moving immediately, I thought, oh, that's Young. Oh, that's all right then. He's the one player who's going to nail that, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. And sure did he hit it. And that was obviously the highlight of the first half. One thing I'd like to mention is what did you think of Tyler French going back at right wing back and not Rhys-Hall Johnson?
I think it's a fitness issue for Johnson. Paul Johnson, I'm assuming. I think, he's been struggling with a couple of sort of niggly injuries this season. And I think it was just the fact that, okay, it's 2 games in 4 days. He put a good shift in at Sutton. I thought he was really good at Sutton. And maybe, as we've now got a viable alternative in French, maybe, it's not too bad to use French. I can see the opposite argument of, in a game like that against a team that's struggling, having Hall Johnson tearing at them probably threatens to open them up more. I can certainly see that. Although, to be fair, it was French who interplayed really well with Durrell down the right to get the ball into Thomas for that goal. So, to be fair to French, he's got what people are now trying to call the pre-assist, the pass to the assist. So, yeah, it's a legitimate call, although I think it was a call made because we can do that because we've got a player who can play that role. And protect Hall Johnson a bit to get him up to full speed, I think.
Well, if Hall Johnson was not 100% fit, Barrett's a winnable game, whether we have Rhys-Hall Johnson, Tyler French, or even Horsfield at right wing back. So why not try something a little bit different against the more winnable sides and give players a rest? Because I think we're going to need Rhys-Hall Johnson against Weymouth on Saturday. We'll talk about that in our preview podcast, because I think Weymouth are a lot better sides when we first played them.
Yes.
But yeah, give him a rest, and it worked out quite well, didn't it? I think Tyler French does a fantastic job. He's a completely different style right wing back. He's more like your traditional right back in some ways because he's a centre back by trade, really. But he does bomb on, and he is fast and physical. So I do really like Tyler French in that position too.
Yeah, he's certainly got pace. We've seen about pace strikers, haven't we, when he's playing in the middle, and like it's power with him, isn't it? With Hall Johnson, it's just sprinting ability, and with French, it's just a pace but power to just barrel on in a straight line. And we saw that in the second half against Wealdstone, where he was very influential once he started getting forward. So yeah, you mentioned a good point about Kwame Thomas, and I didn't comment on it. So just going back to that, in these 2 games, Thomas hasn't had as much service. He hasn't shone like he has done in the games before that, but I think he's been very good. He's done well with what he's got. He's still winning a lot of headers. That setup was perfect, of course. 6 assists for the season now. And I pointed out on the Wrexham Anorak page on the website that the last player to get as many goals and assists in a season as him for Wrexham was John Rooney back in 2016. And to be fair to Thomas, we've not finished the season yet. There's a fair bit of it to go. So, yeah, again, fair play to him. He's got a lot of value, even in games where we're not getting much up to him. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. I think it's fair to say, Chay, though, in the second half, we did struggle to get the ball forwards to him until about the last quarter of an hour. And we had to suffer for our clean sheet, didn't we?
To be honest with you, Mark, I thought it was I was watching a lot of the second half with my hands, covering my face and watching my eyes are peeking between my fingers, because I thought they might get a goal here. Yeah. And I know you said on your review podcast that you thought a lot of their chances are offside and maybe poor calls, but even then, I think we let them get back into the game as well. So I thought second half, I thought we were quite poor. But if you're playing quite poor and still winning 2-0 and having a clean sheet, it's not a terrible conundrum, really, is it?
Well, that's very true. I mean, both managers talked afterwards about how Barnet started turning us in the second half, and that's true. And I think that led to the difficulty we had going forwards, because naturally our defence started to drop off because they're getting turned. Naturally, our midfield started dropping off to protect the defence, and we were left with a big gap between our defensive block and the two strikers, weren't we? But yeah, I mean, I've got two ways of looking at this, I suppose, if I'm honest. I felt the same way. I felt edgy. I thought they could nick a goal back here. To be fair, I suppose, apart from that one-on-one, which unless there's someone out of picture on all the angles, which is possible, I said in the podcast, that's what happened with Luke Armstrong against Hartlepool. Record was out of the picture, but was deeper than everyone else. Unless that happens, the guy's offside. I mean, he looks a good spot ahead of play. The flag didn't go up, so it would have counted. Dibble did well. Apart from that one, they're all shots from the edge of the box. So the defence are keeping them pretty at arm's length. Good save by Dibble from the first chance that Wordsworth had. But apart from that one, and then there was that deflected one, which again should not have counted because it was a blatant handball in the immediate lead up to it. You know, maybe they didn't create that much. I'm not happy with how we let them get on top of us, but we defended it pretty solidly. And then in the last quarter of an hour, I think we did then start to cash in and, well, took control till the goal and then completely killed the game dead, didn't we, really? Our game management, as they call it, was impressive, wasn't it?
Yeah, and our defence is arguably one of the best in the league, isn't it? Yeah. And the combination, and Carrington, I can't praise that man enough. I think he's so professional. He's so solid. He's Mr. Consistent, reliable at pretty much most games, isn't he?
Oh yeah. It's interesting that, you know, he's certainly not come into the club 8 years ago as a centre back, because he's so adaptable. We've used him as a centre back in a 3. It's tended to be in an emergency, and you know the feeling we used to get out of him was, well, he can do a job there. That's not his position. You're not going to leave him there, but he can do a job there. Now, quite frankly, I don't look at him at all like that. These recent games, he's been absolutely outstanding as a centre back. He's done his job beautifully. And I wouldn't have any qualms now if he stays in that position. Whereas previously, he was a useful stopgap if we had players out injured. But I mean, we know he reads the game well, but he's robust and in there. And let's be honest, he's coming back straight into the team in this position from a long-term injury, because he missed a huge chunk at the start of the season. He's been brilliant. I mean, fair play to him.
Yeah, and we have such a plethora of centre-backs now, don't we? That, you know, and centre-back combination. We've had some centre-back combinations this season, haven't we? We've had Pearson, Kelleher have played together as well, haven't they?
I am so sad. You keep trying to name them. I'll bring up how many we've had. Go on.
We've had Horsfield,
yeah,
Carrington and Kelleher, haven't we, at one point?
Yeah.
And I thought Horsfield did a fantastic job at centre half as well.
I liked what Keats said after the match, where he singled out for praise Rutherford and Horsfield, saying, I left them out of my 16. And it was basically a credit to the squad that two blokes like that, who never let him down and who trained superbly week in, week out, couldn't get onto the bench. And I like the fact that he did that. I mean, that's how you keep your team spirit going, isn't it, really? Those are two good players. And you want to make sure they understand that they are really valued. And I like the way he did that. I thought that was a smart touch.
Well, if Rutherford and Horsfield get named into the starting 11 on Saturday, I'm not really sad or crying about it or complaining about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, like you said, he's a good fullback. He's done really well at centre back when we've asked him to. He's a good player, good all round player. Horsfield.
Hello
there. You there?
Oh, sorry. I think the internet crackled a little bit then.
Yeah, I think it's me again, I'm afraid. So, right, carry on. Go on.
Edit that one out. But yeah, I think at the back, I think we're so solid and we're getting a lot of clean sheets. So I've been very happy I'm very happy with Wrexham at the moment.
Right, let's get these sad stats that I've been collecting out of the way, shall we?
Let's do it.
It's tragic, this, but actually, just occurred to me. Why don't I share my screen? Show you exactly how dreadful my spreadsheet is. So there we are. Can you see that?
Oh, let's have a look.
Now, that pink box there is every central defensive partnership we've had this season.
Wow.
So now, admittedly, some of them, like because of French's red card, Kelleher and Horsfield played centre-back together for 4 minutes. You know, some of these combinations are a little more obscure, shall we say, than others. Or clearly, that's whether I think that might have been the injury to Vassell, possibly. Kelleher and record for 10 minutes in a game. But it's a heck of a lot of different combinations and threes and twos at the back. But, I mean, wow. Kelleher, Vassell and Horsfield letting a goal every 132 minutes. That's not too bad. I know there's more to it than that. French, Kelleher and Carrington, a goal pretty much every 2 hours. It's not bad. This bit down here, by the way, I'm aware that these are only circumstantial. They're not proof of anything. Goals per minute conceded when these players are playing in a defensive position. So as you can see, there are some strange ones, like Jeffrey played 28 minutes as a wing-back in one of the games earlier where we were trying to chase the match. Clowers played 90 minutes of a trophy game. Carrington, interestingly, least goals per minute. When Carrington was playing as a defender, we let a goal in again every 2 hours. French, pretty much every 2 hours. There's other indicators for that, aren't there, really, to be fair, in other circumstances. But it's quite interesting to see it.
It's the one place in the pitch that I don't think we really need that much improvement, because even now wing backs, we have good cover for both wing backs. You know, Jordan Davis can play left wing back too, and I think Jamie Record's been fantastic in that position. So yeah, fascinating to see all the partnerships we have had. Yeah. And the defensive record that we have had as well has been pretty good, isn't it? Especially at home. Yeah. Oh, I thought we now got, because Solihull collapsed in midweek, we've now got the best home defence in the division. Our away defence doesn't look that great, but frankly, that's because at the start of the season we were letting in goals in away games to the better teams. Well, no, not just to the better teams. We let 4 against Wealdstone, didn't we? For example, we let 2 against Weymouth. But now we seem to have tightened that up away from home, don't we? And we've just had 2 clean sheets, and now just remembered Aldershot happened. So, okay, away from home, we're up and down, should we say. That here at the top, by the way, is just goals conceded per minute by the goalkeepers and clean sheets as well. And interesting to see that after Tuesday, after these 2 clean sheets, Dibble's actually conceding goals at a slower rate than Leighton, admittedly not by much. So, goals per match, 0.93 Dibble, 1.06 Leighton. Not much difference. I'm taking into account there the substitute appearances worked out by minute. But, fair play to Dibble for coming into the team. And obviously the defence does part of that work as well, but he's continuing the good work that Leighton does, which is quite a compliment if he can maintain his standards. Yeah, well, I know Dibble's maybe got a little bit more of a mistake in him than Leighton. I don't like to criticise too much, but it's competition in that position as well, isn't it? Yeah, so that's also nice to see. How healthy is that? It's funny, at the start of the season, I was really pleased with the squad that Keats brought in. And as you know, I often said
we've really got a good squad. We have genuinely got 2 options in each position. And at the start of the season, when it wasn't quite gelling, I was thinking, okay, maybe we're not quite living up to that. But now I think, apart from up front, where, to be fair, circumstances haven't helped us, we've got genuine options all over the pitch, haven't we? I think the change of shape has helped us. I think that, it makes Carrington and Horsfield into viable centre-backs. It means that you don't have to rely on wide midfielders, perhaps, which maybe was an area of slight weakness. And, it means more players, make more square pegs and square holes, perhaps. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hello?
Oh, your Wi-Fi went again then, mate. I heard most of it.
Well, it'll probably, because it's recording centrally, it'll probably have picked up what I said, but it'll just pick up this gap as well. So we'll what did I say? I forgot what I asked you. Oh yeah, that our shape is better than our change of shape means that more square. Yeah, more last thing I said was like more square pegs and square holes. So maybe if you carry on from there, just then we can just do that. So I'll count you in if you like. 3, 2, 1.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Can you do that again?
Well, I was just saying, because we changed our shape, we got more options, like Carrington Horse, who can play centre-back.
Right, yeah.
We've got more players who seem comfortable in the positions they're in, and our squad's starting to show that depth again. Right,
I get you. Sorry, I had a brain fart then.
That's all right. Don't worry, Mark explained it very well. So, well, if you like, I'll just say that, and then we'll just carry on from here.
Yeah, okay? Happy days.
Yeah. So so basically, because we've got this change of shape, players are more comfortable in the positions they're in, and we basically have got more square pegs and square holes.
Yeah, it's promising to see it, and we have a lot of players who can play several different positions, which is good. I'd say the only part of the field where we are lacking is strikers, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I suppose, the whole Adi Yusuf thing left us up the garden path, isn't it, really? And every other club would be able to draft somebody in, and we can't. And I know we could say, should we have kept Bickerstaff, but I think it's important for Bickerstaff's development that he goes and gets games. So
true.
If we have to play a striker with Jarvis off them, for example, if we get injuries, so be it. I thought it was interesting as well that Dean Keats singled out Jordan Ponticelli, saying that he's still not be able to get a season going. He's not be able to have that consistency because of injuries, but that because Dior Angus hasn't been playing as much lately, Ponticelli's chance will probably come. Angus will need to have a little bit of a break at some point, and he wants to be getting him on the pitch so that he's ready for that.
Well, back to the Bickerstaff thing. I think Keats probably would have kept him in the squad if he knew the situation with Adi Yusuf, because it was a bit of a mess, wasn't it? And he left last minute and left quite high, really. So I think if we had Adi Yusuf and Ponticelli, our strike force has actually looked quite strong. But I think Keats probably would have kept hold of Bickerstaff if we knew Adi Yusuf was going well in advance. So we can't really blame anyone for that. But as you said, I think it is important for him to go to the Welsh Premier League and further on his development, which I think he is doing. And he scored a goal on the weekend. More than happy for him.
Yeah, exactly. I think Yusuf would have been on the bench. He wouldn't have been getting in ahead of Angus and Thomas, frankly. But we've seen he has done well off the bench as well, hasn't he? So he would have been useful to have around, but no point crying over spilt milk. He's gone. And yeah, we'll carry on with what we've got. And at the moment, what we've got looks pretty decent. Keats talking about hoping in the next couple of weeks to have his entire squad available to him. That's good news.
Definitely. So what are your thoughts on the ban again? And what's the overall thoughts?
I guess, like Sutton, wasn't pretty, but it's a good result. It's a win. And end of an away win against a side who showed a bit of grit and tried to fight back in the second half. And they're, all teams are entitled to do that and disrupt your plans. But we dug in when we had to. And then we haven't mentioned that lovely Durrell goal. So a hell of a good finish as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, we haven't talked about that. And there were two worldies, really, weren't they, that separated the two teams. Durrell's goal was really beautifully slotted into the bottom corner. So, yeah, more of that, please, Durrell, this season. We know he's got it in him.
Yeah. I've got to say, when I was editing it, I went back a little bit, obviously, to find the start of the move. And I think that showed what quality we have that Barnet lacked. Tim Flowers afterwards mentioned part of it because he said that, the ball's dropped on the edge of the area. Young is there with 4 Barnet players around him, but Young wins it. And he's quite right. And then Young laid off a sensible square pass. But I would take it back a little earlier than that. The ball's knocked in the box and Thomas battles for it and creates that loose ball. I'm not sure whether he headed it backwards or whether he just forced the centre-back to head it out weakly. But either way, it doesn't matter. The fact is that Thomas battled for a difficult cross and made something, kept the move alive. And then at the very start of that move, it's funny, if you look back, there are 4 50-50s in a row, and we win all of them. Just in midfield, before it gets out to the right flank. But I just thought, okay, so the very start, there's 4 50-50s, we win them all. When the ball comes in, Thomas fights for that ball. Young then fights for that ball. We've really shown, that's the difference between those sides in a way, that we're a side that can make decisive interventions, that can battle for the ball. Barnet, a side who lose too many of those. It's not like sticking it past you 10 yards all the time and gets you relegated. It's the fact that all those little things don't happen for you. That's what gets you relegated. Hello?
A great deal I can add to that. Oh, is it gone again, is it?
You're all right now. You're fine now. Just go again. Just go from now.
3, 2, 1. Yeah, I think there's not really a great deal I can add to that. Happy performance. Well, not really happy performance. A full performance for the podcast. I must sound like a broken record. Winning 2-0 and not playing great is fine.
You sound a little bit like a Dalek rather than the broken record, but I'll live with it. Yeah, absolutely correct. Tim Flowers went, of course, the day afterwards, the Barnet manager. His post-match interview was not a happy one. The headline was slightly misleading in a sense. He called his team a bunch of losers, and that was what the headline was. But when you listen to him, he didn't quite put it in that... Well, he did use that phrase. I don't think he meant it to sound quite as direct in a sense as the headline, taken out of context, makes it sound. But he was unhappy, and I think there's just a sense that Flowers, who's an experienced old hand at this level, has done what he can. He just can't get a tune out of his team. Sometimes it's difficult for a manager in that situation, isn't it?
Yeah, and maybe Barnet will be fortunate this season with maybe not having relegation.
Yeah.
Because just look at their structure, their club. Look at their stadium. Their stadium looks absolutely fantastic. Yeah. The facilities look really good. I've never been, but from viewing in, their commentators were fantastic and very well knowledgeable as well the other day. So they're obviously a club with a lot of structure. And if they do avoid the drop this season, because I don't think they're not obviously not going to avoid the drop if the National League doesn't. If the National League has relegation this season, then they're not going to avoid the drop, are they? No. But if they do avoid the drop, you could see them fighting for playoffs next season with a good rebuild because the size of their club and the structure of their stadium and what have you. So, yeah, good luck to them for the rest of the season.
Yeah, that's going to be painful for them, isn't it? The downside for them is what we talked about in the preview podcast, that they have consciously gambled for 2 years with the money they got as a parachute payment. It didn't work. And when you fail in a gamble, you pay a consequence, and this is the consequence. So it's difficult in that sense, perhaps, to rebuild. Although Torquay have shown how you can do that, because they were struggling and have rebuilt. The positive, though, is, like you said, they've got that wonderful setup there. They've got a good youth system. The youth facilities are stunning. I mean, when you go around the back of that main stand, and it's just 4G pictures as far as the eye can see. I mean, it's marvellous. And as well as that, they are essentially in London. And that's a big, big advantage. You've got a big network of non-league players who want to stay in the London area. You've got a lot of higher level teams who will have young lads who are decent and don't make the grade and don't want to stay in the area. So you might pick up players from Orient, from Charlton. You see plenty of ex-Spurs and West Ham players in these London-based non-league teams. Yeah. And just the very fact, you know, it's just an economic truth, isn't it? If you are near the big city, you will have more opportunity. You'll probably get more chance of sponsorship or significant people being able to support you. So they have got a lot of advantages. They were used by BT to train up all the National League cameramen. You know, so it could be used as a training centre. They've got good sort of conference facilities there near London. That's handy. They've got a lot in their favour. Although I will say about their stadium, there is one issue, which is that if it rains and you're in the commentary area, you get wet, which isn't good when you've got electrical equipment. I can promise.
Well, if that's the only thing that's frustrating in that stadium, because I thought the stadium was absolutely beautiful.
I've got to say to you as well, as you haven't been there, the stands that the cameras are in is much more impressive than the one opposite. That's a much nicer stand.
So that it's a very Football League ready ground, isn't it?
Oh, no question, no question. I got wet. It was the last time that I was there, which was the previous away game, and it was a strange sort of day. It was on and off, like showery, at the start of the game, and you weren't really cut. The commentary positions are quite weirdly close to the pitch because that stand opposite the cameras essentially is like the conference centre with a few seats in front of it. It doesn't go back all that far, and yeah, so I was sort of wondering, what am I going to do here if the rain actually really comes in? I mean, I can't let my equipment get wet because it might explode or something, you know. Luckily it didn't, but if it was pouring down, I'm not sure what they would do. The other weird thing about that game, just to delve back down memory lane for a bit, was the nature of the match itself. Oh, my word. It was daft. So we were trying to get in the playoffs. We're losing at half-time. We came back really well in the second half. It was under Brian Hughes. Elliott Wright scores a good header at the start of the half, so we're level. We're trying to push on and push on. We can't get the winner. And then last 10 minutes, we brought on Jermaine McGlashan, who was a particularly ineffective signing as a winger. Very lightweight, didn't really achieve much. And fair play to him. We stuck a ball into the box. He went chasing after it. He managed to get contact on it and force it towards goal as he's being tackled, and sort of squeezes it into the ground as well. And I was directly behind it, and the highlights the camera angle doesn't do it justice. I was right behind it. He's managed to squeeze it into the ground, and it spins up, takes the bit of deflection. It goes over the keeper, but it's clearly going wide. It's definitely going wide. There's no question. But there's so much spin on it. It bounces about a yard wide of the post, and then just like an off break in cricket, it just span back into the net, and we won 2-1. Oh, it was hilarious. But just how you want to win an away game, I tell you.
Oh yeah, a dodgy bouncing ball hitting the net is as good as a 30-yard screamer.
Oh yeah. Mind you, I don't know. Maybe I haven't seen Elliott Durrell do that. Maybe I should step back a bit.
So leading on to that Weymouth game, though, a win was vital, and it eases a lot of pressure. And I think, looking at where Weymouth are on the table, I know we're going to talk about that in a separate preview podcast, but going into that game with 4 points from those last two games is really good.
Massive. Gives us that opportunity, doesn't it? 2 home games now. 2 very significant home games. Like you said, Weymouth are just outside the relegation zone, if it is a relegation zone. And then Eastleigh, who are the team at the moment who are right behind us. Although that midweek win means we're 5 points clear of them. which again, I think illustrates the point I try to make about having points in the hand rather than games in hand. So, if we could maintain this momentum, I mean, that would be a chance for us to really open up proper daylight between us and Eastleigh, which would be fantastic. But yeah, like you said, we'll go into Weymouth in detail, but they are a different proposition to Barnet. They are a different proposition to what they were when we played them and beat them earlier this season, and they'll be a bigger test than maybe some people might expect, I think.
Yeah, 100%.
I'll tell you what, just looking back on what we said about screamers winning matches, away matches, after this, we're going to hear from a very popular character from the 80s who had a habit of scoring screamers at Stockport on a Friday night, but nowhere else. Well, I say that, he also got one in a playoff semi-final, which wasn't too bad. So after this, we'll hear from our erstwhile left-back, Darren Wright.
I'm John Ponticelli, and you're listening to the Dragonheart Radio Show.
Well, Darren, thank you so much for joining me. You were always a player I enjoyed watching. You came from Wolves, and you straight away had a connection, didn't you, with George Showell being there already at the club?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember sort of my first day at the club, meeting George. In all honesty, I didn't really know that he played for Wolves, even though he played in probably the club's one of the most historic games that they ever played in, which was an FA Cup final. It was only when he he introduced himself and said, "I am George Showell, and I used to play for Wolves." He said, "I'm from Bilston," which is a part of the Black Country that I knew very well, being from Tipton. And he says, "You'll be all right here, kid." So as soon as he said that, it made me feel really at home. And of course, Roger Priest was there as well at the time. He'd just come the same time as me, and we'd been at Wolves together. So it felt like playing for a club that I've been to before, to be honest with you.
And with you and Rogers, even though one on the left, one on the right, you seemed in the fans' minds, I think, to be sort of a pair almost. So it was obvious you had a link, and that there was that sort of you both were similar, committed, wholehearted players.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'd come out of the youth team at Wolves, and we had an old youth team coach called Frank Upton, who'd been at Villa and West Ham and Chelsea, and he was a stickler for discipline. He was a stickler for the more physical side of the game. So if you didn't put your foot in, as we used to call it, if you didn't do that, then he would be the first one that would be jumping at it on you at half time. It was something that as a sort of 16, 17-year-old, we kind of had it built into us. We played a lot of youth football against men's teams when we were at Wolves, playing in sort of like the Midland Football League and things like that. So physicality was part of our game. So I think when we kind of come to Wrexham, and even though we were still very young, sort of 18-year-olds, the physical side of it, and seeing the 18-year-olds that were already there, I think we actually felt like men, straight away. Yeah. We were kind of in the first team squad, even though we were only just coming out of our apprenticeships, if you know what I mean. So it was, it was really good.
It's interesting me that, because obviously academies are very different now from the sort of youth setups that there were then, and at some sense, think, I mean, maybe my view is coloured by the fact that Wrexham are 5 leagues down now, but young lads we get from academies tend to be very technical, but really not ready for the sort of men's game. Whereas, like you say, you guys, you had a proper sort of baptism. You were ready to get in against people who were playing for their livelihoods.
It was, I made my debut when I was 17 at Wolves, played against Plymouth at Home Park in the old 3rd Division. 17 years old, just thrown in, when the club was going for a bit of a time. And it does, you have to be a man straight away. You have to be prepared to do the physical side of the game. I know that they do now, but it's definitely different. Before I moved to Cornwall, where I live now, I was actually working for Wolves Academy, and the change in the approach towards the development of the players was completely different to when I was a player. It was they've got all their right age groups to play in. They've got all the right sports science backing that, and it's just a different world now. Even in the sort of League One and League Two, you're going to get a different mindset regarding the development of their players.
You know what? Not that long after you came to us, I remember there was a documentary on TV about the Wolves youth setup. And I was watching out for both you and Roger. I spotted you, and then Roger didn't appear for a while, and then they showed some footage for a match. One of the players on the other side is running towards the camera, and then from about knee-high, someone's studs came in. I thought, that's Roger, and it was.
I'll do it. It's called Moment of Truth. That was a BBC documentary, and they spent 6 months with us as filming us in different, playing for the reserves, playing for the youth team, training, and Tommy Doherty was the manager at the time, and then partway through the documentary actually got sacked. So it was, and Frank Upton, our youth development officer, he got sacked as well. It was a complete clear out of the decks, and it was just the harshness of the times. Being at the club when it was it's probably lowest ebb, or I know recently Wolves did sort of drop down the divisions before they climbed back up to the Premiership. But when I signed for the club as a schoolboy, they were in the old Division 1, which would be like the Premier League now. And then when I left, of course, and come to Wrexham, they were just going into Division 4. And it was great to play against them, to be honest with you.
That's what I was going to say, that must have been a heck of an experience. And like the old cavernous Molyneux with the massive cop and everything as well.
Yes, absolutely. When we played, I think there was just, maybe just two sides of the ground open at the time. And it was, obviously it was great to, I think we beat them actually at Molyneux. And that was fantastic for me. Not so good when I went home to my parents' house for the weekend. One of my friends from school knocking on the door saying, "What the hell are you doing playing for Wrexham?" I didn't even know. It was, so he's turned up at my mum's house, and I had a good conversation with him on.
I think it was one of the games between Wrexham and Wolves was Steve Ball and Thompson's debuts for Wolves, and we put 4 goals past them, if I remember, at the racecourse as well. We beat them quite heavily both times as well. Yeah. It was always great to play against. Obviously, it's great to play against your old club that you sort of grew up with. But I was a fan of the club before I was a player. But when you do play against them, you see sort of Joey having his battles with Bully and that. Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Of course, nowadays that sort of thing wouldn't happen. And I think there'd probably be 6 players on each side left on the pitch. Well, I have a few clear memories of those games. One was the sadness of seeing Molyneux like that. I'm the same age as you, Darren, and I was in the stands sitting watching it, thinking, what a I was there to see Wrexham playing FA Cup at Wolves in '81, and to see it now, in that state was sad. It's good to see it recover. The other memory I've got is being on the Kop and Mark Kendall trying to get his tracksuit bottoms off, and every time he tried to, he'd get his studs caught in them, and then we'd attack. And he ended up falling into his own net. And this went on for about 10 minutes, him waiting until the ball was in our box and then trying to pull his pants off and failing. Oh, we had a great old time watching that.
There's some great memories regarding the... Wolves and Wrexham have had a pretty good connection, I think, over the years. There's always been sort of some kind of connection there. Even recently, I think, even now, I think you've got somebody who plays for the club now that was at Wolves.
We've had a good sort of link. We've some of our youth players have gone to Wolves and joined their youth setup, and then some have come back.
And coaches as well, you know.
Yeah.
When I was coaching in the academy there, you got Darren Wright, and I think he'd been at Wrexham. Obviously, Steve Weaver, you know. Weave's a good lad, and he was quite high up in the Wolves coaching setup. And I think you got somebody called Record who plays for you at the minute.
Yes, yeah.
Well, he was in Wolves reserves or the under-23s. I'm sure he was quite recently.
Yeah, he came from Solihull, but a left back, so you know all about them.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Although, funnily enough, Darren, I mean, we were saying before about the sort of technical nature of young players coming through now, but my recollection of you was that unusually for a fullback, and certainly, you know, apart from the last few years, you were very two-footed. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I played for Wolves at right back and left back. Well, I actually started as a centre back when I was sort of 14 or 15. I was quite physically big and you know, quite strong for my age. So I started off as a centre half, you know. But as time moved on, I kind of found myself in sort of like the fullback berth, and in the central league as it was back then, playing in the reserves. I played at both left back and right back. Of course, when I went to Wrexham, you know, Dixie said, you know, where do you play? And I said, right back. He said, oh, yeah, well, we got a right back, but, you know, we want to struggle for left back a little bit. I said, well, you know, I've played there. It wouldn't be uncommon for me to play there. And, you know, it's sort of, I think it works in some respect because when you're playing on the left-hand side and you're naturally right-footed, when the play opens up and you can join in, especially with the attacking side of the game, it does offer itself to, you know, playing off the front, having it back and having a shot, which is what I used to do quite a bit of, and so occasionally I'd score. You know, so you know, it was always a kind of, and of course, you know, the opposition, the scouting networks weren't that good back then, so they automatically assume you get down the outside of the pitch and try and get a crossing, because that's what the game was, you know, 4-4-2 back in the day. You know, get as wide as quick as you can and get the crosses in the box for forwards to score. But you know, we did try and, you know, mix that up a little bit. You know, we were playing balls into Kevin Russell and playing little 1-2s. You know, whoever it was who was playing up the top there, and you know, it sometimes worked for us. And it was great because it was, and also when you defended, you know, if you think of the ball being on the opposite side of the pitch and a cross comes across, you know, you're gonna clear that with your natural foot as opposed to letting it come across your body as a normal left back. You know, there's always that, if you're letting the ball come across your body, there's always the chance that, you know, a striker or a forward can nip in front of you then and get the ball. So it did have its pluses, you know, and I suppose sometimes, you know, not being naturally left-footed, the quality of the passes going forward probably weren't as great as they could have been. But you know, we I mean, Dixie liked it. Dixie loved playing with us like that. So it was great. I absolutely loved it.
And you made your debut in Malta, didn't you? We used to always say in those days, you know, us being in Europe would attract players. But yeah, that's a weird place to suddenly find yourself playing your first game for us.
You know, it was dead strange because the season before that, I'd gone with Wolves there on a end of season tour. So I'd already played against. It was the Maltese national team we played against actually when I was at Wolves, and we just played them in a friendly, you know, just an end of season thing. We'd gone on tour over there, and you know, so we'd already played in Malta, funnily enough, and then of course I get a chance to play against Zurich, and I remember saying to Dixie, "Oh, lads, you know, they ain't going to be very good because we beat the national side, you know." So, playing against the club side, they ain't going to be that good.
Well, you weren't wrong, actually, really, were you?
No, they were, you know, the standard of football weren't very good, to be honest.
Yeah. I was on a holiday in Malta about 5 years ago, and my son's a big Wrexham fan as well, and we went off on a bus and ended up accidentally stumbling across the stadium you played at, and good, it looked like a hard pitch as well, you know, the sun's baking it.
Yeah, it was. I remember us training, and we had to have salt tablets and you know, all manner of stuff just so we could you know, sort of get through the game and the training session.
Well, you said about and well, hang on, that was then, was that Zaragoza next then? I'm just getting mixed up.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah. And then it was Zaragoza, Real Zaragoza. Fantastic trip. Absolutely brilliant. You know, and to sort of be 18 years of age and on the bench.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, it's such a fantastic stadium. You know, and being quite a full house as well. You know, I think there was 30,000 there or whatever it was back then. You know, it was, and of course the lads' performance over there was nothing short of miraculous, really. To get a sort of a draw and get them back to Wrexham, it was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal team performance.
And then that went to extra time as well, didn't it? It's terrific what we used to do in Europe, gosh.
Yeah, brilliant, absolutely brilliant days.
I tell you what, you mentioned goals before, I was desperate to mention this. There's an obvious goal, we'll say, but before we get to that, you scored some screamers, and you had something against Stockport County, I seem to recall, consecutive Friday nights, where we went to Stockport and you just belted it in from 30 yards.
Yeah, I think, you know, it was just one of them occasions, wasn't it, you know, where, again, I've sort of come up to my right foot, and as a kid growing up, I always used to love shooting. You know, in fact, in my early days as when I was growing and sort of involved as a schoolboy at Wolves, I did actually play as a forward player and sometimes in midfield. So it wasn't strange for me to have a little pop-up goal occasionally if I felt it right. So, you know, it was just one of them times. I hadn't scored many goals for Wrexham, and I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to have a shot. There was nothing else on, so I did. And yeah, like you say, for some strange reason, it happened again the year after, I think.
Yeah.
And, it was just weird, absolutely weird. But, you know, great memories. And, of course, against Stockport, who I suppose you would class them as a bit of a local. Yeah. And obviously Derby. Yeah. You know, so, great. Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. I loved it.
When the ball comes to you in the second match, does it go through your mind, oh, I've done this before here, or you're just in the game?
I think it kind of in the back of your mind, you're thinking, well, I've done it before.
Yeah.
So, why not? You know?
Muscle memory, innit?
Yeah. I think, in all honesty, I think they were quite similar goals as well, if I remember rightly. You know, I don't think there was much to choose between them. So, I just remember thinking, you know, I've got a bit of a strike on me. Let's have a go.
Yeah.
You know, it's caught it right. You know, you could have flew 20 foot over the bar, but luckily for me, it screamed into the back of the net.
And then the Scunthorpe screamer was the one I was leading up to, of course, the semi-finals of the playoffs, to nail it like that, and that was fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a free kick, I think it was, wasn't it? Free kick? Yeah. Well, because I've got a decent strike on me, you know, occasionally it's been in a decent position for me to have a strike, and we've been practising them, obviously, in training and things like that. So, yeah, you know, I end up stepping up there. Sometimes it'll be John Bowden who'd take it, or Kevin Russell, or Jeff Hunter, and then sometimes me, you know, and luckily for me, it was that on that night, it was me, and I struck it well, and it went in, so...
Fantastic. And then Orient, sadly, where we just missed out, didn't we? It was frustrating, that.
Yeah. I think, you know, we let ourselves down a little bit at home. I think we could have played a little bit better at home, to be honest with you. Perhaps took a bit of an advantage to their ground. Yeah. Of course, the legs were played home and away then, weren't they? As well as, you know, Wembley now. But I think we probably... It was one of them, weren't it, where we got our hopes sort of getting a good result at home and then taking it to Orient, and it didn't quite happen. Yeah. And I think on the day at Orient as well, I don't think we probably played as well as we could either. I think we could have played better. It was just that, you know, it just passed us by a little bit, which is regrettable. But you know, I think. I don't know how the board would have seen it, but had we have got promoted.
Really?
You know what I mean? It might have been a bit of a shock to the system, but you know, obviously when you're out there playing, you're not thinking about things like that. But you just want to win, you know what I mean? But and of course for the fans, you want to do your best for the fans. But we just fell short a little bit, I thought, on the day. You know?
And then the next season we had the different financial issues, like you said. The board maybe wouldn't have been prepared for the extra expenditure as well. And it was frustrating. Your time at Wrexham, of course, horribly ended because of an injury, didn't it?
Yeah. Look, funny enough, recently I had to sort of talk about things like that with the PFA because I've just recently had my knee replaced, literally my left knee replaced, and the PFA sort of paid for that for me. But it had to go back to obviously the last game I ever played for Wrexham, which was against Doncaster Rovers. So it did bring back some memories. And after that, then I think I only made one sub appearance, which was because of the European rules at Lingby. I think I was sub just because I was classed as part of the club for a long time. So it was the rules back then for the European games. And but last actual game for Wrexham was against Doncaster, and I think it was a tackle that I went into with a guy called Mark Rankin. Who I actually got to know because he signed for Wolves not long after with James Kelly. And I actually got to know him really well because of that reason, and actually got him some digs in sort of Wolverhampton, being from that area, and James as well. It's one of them, and it's just a tackle you just do in every game. Unfortunately for me, it was the one that kind of wrecked my knee beyond repair, if you like. And it was the one that ended it. But I have no regrets about that. But I just wished I could have. I could have seen myself probably stopping at Wrexham for quite a bit longer. You know what I mean? I think there was some challenges there with the left back position because Phil Hardy was a good player and he was coming through. And Alan Kennedy had just arrived at the club. But I was still young. And I think I probably could have challenged for that position or even another one. You know what I mean? So, and funny enough, after you sort of know that you probably time's up there and you speak to people. We used to have a scout at the club called John Green, lovely fella, and he told me that there was a lot of big clubs looking at me before I got injured. I mean, I didn't know at the time, and obviously, you hear things, don't you? He said, he said there was lots of big clubs looking at you, before you got your injury, and I was like, oh, right, okay. but it's one of them. I could have seen my time probably spent at Wrexham a little bit longer, perhaps a few more years there, but it wasn't to be, and that's the way life is, I suppose.
Yeah, it was a shame for us as well. I don't think Kennedy would have come in if you'd been fit, and it would have been brilliant to see you and Hardy both, going through. But I think it was a sad day for us when you couldn't play anymore. As well.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, I'd won sort of a young player of the year a couple of times. And I was still only 21 then, maybe 22, just coming, and Phil was 17, 18. So I think the future for sort of like the club as regards the left-hand side of the pitch would have been fantastic, And obviously when Alan, you're right, when Alan Kennedy come, I kind of kept him out of the team, really, with all of his experience and all of his, the level he played at and the trophies he'd won and the medals he'd won. It was one of them, innit? I just used to come to training every day and think, well, all right, I'm keeping Alan Kennedy at the team. He's won the European Cup, so that's not too bad.
Scored a winning goal in one final, scored a winning penalty in the other, but he's not getting past you. Fair play.
Absolutely, yeah. Brilliant. I mean, you think about that and actually being his teammate, and you just think, wow. Same with Joey, sort of the level of football that Joey played at, and the competitions he played in, and the players he played against, for Wales and for Wrexham, and you just, you kind of pinch yourself really to think that he was actually one of his, his teammates, because but both Joey and Alan Kennedy are great people, by the way, absolutely fantastic people, and really good, really great players. Absolutely fantastic players.
Yeah. I always loved the story of Alan Kennedy signing for Liverpool and giving a call box as his phone number to Liverpool and having to stay in the phone box for the whole day waiting because he didn't have a phone in his house. Yeah. And
that would not surprise me.
And I've got it there for final thing I'll ask you. I tell you what, this is more just therapy for me, I've got to be honest, more than anything else. I'm sure that when you were playing for Wrexham, I was driving down Ferry Road, where the old Welsh FA headquarters used to be, and I swear I saw you stuck in a phone box, and I've always beaten myself up for not coming and helping because it looked like the door was jammed.
Oh, right.
Is that true? Do you ever remember being stuck in a phone box?
I can't remember that, to be honest with you.
It was probably someone else.
Where's Ferry Road now? Explain to me where in the town that is.
Oh gosh, if you were going towards the town from the club, you'd have to turn right and sort of head around the edge of the town a bit.
Past the brewery? Down that
way? Down that way, yeah.
Right, okay, so me and Rog lived down that way for a little bit. We sort of had a house not far from the town centre, to be honest with you. Yeah. We rented a house of someone not far from the town, and he was down that way, but I can't ever remember being stuck in a phone box.
Yes. It does. I think it's something that would stick in your memory. It must have been a tribute act, I think, Darren.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I reckon. Alan Kennedy, one abiding memory I've got of Alan Kennedy.
Yeah.
When we played in Linby, he was. I had to share the room with him.
Yeah.
And he was absolutely. Old school. Didn't want to go to sleep. Wanted to stay up all hours. I wanted a little bit of a drink as well.
Yeah.
Even though he was probably in his mid-30s then. And I remember saying to him, Al, I need to get me a down, because I'm I'm on the bench tomorrow. I'm after 5 minutes. And he's like, yeah, don't worry about it, kid, you'll be all right. And he says, anyway, do you want me to talk you through my goals at school? Didn't you? I said, you know what? Yeah, I'll never get tired of hearing about them.
I'll have to get him on and see if he volunteers to stories again.
Fantastic memories.
Oh. Well, Darren, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, like I said, you were always a player that stuck in my mind, and I was really keen to chat to you, and you certainly haven't disappointed. There's some fantastic tales there. Thank you so much.
I absolutely loved my time at Wrexham, and I always felt that I had a bit of an affinity with the fans because, I lived in the area, because me and Rog did, that's what we did. We never travelled into the club at all, even though the Midlands is not that far away.
Yeah.
And I felt that we was always part of the club, part of the town, and I loved playing for them.
I'm Fiacre Kelleher, and you're listening to Dragonheart Radio Show.
Right, so this is it then. End of the show. Big couple of home games coming up, Chay, but fair play. We've got the momentum going now. I'm feeling this feels like an opportunity now, doesn't it, to really drive home our promotion credentials.
Yeah, 100%. We've got Weymouth and Eastleigh. That on paper, you look at the Weymouth game, you think, we should be winning that, and we should be winning it. But recently, they've been really good. So it's just time to kick on and carry on being as consistent as we have been.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, let's hope we can succeed. Those games, of course, you can get a live stream, which I'm sure you'll agree is looking rather classy at the moment. Also, we've got the live Mixler commentary, and then highlights will be coming out midnight Monday morning for the Weymouth game. They'll be coming out 10 o'clock Wednesday evening for the Eastleigh game. Those are the rules. They're embargoed until then by the National League. Of course, if you can't wait for them, we'll have post-match podcasts, question and answer live streams on YouTube, and all sorts of goodness. So, remember, subscribe, like, activate notifications, write reviews, give us star ratings, all those things push us up the charts, and all those things help to bring revenue into the club. So, let's hope that we can have some good stuff again next week to report on after a successful week this week. Pleasure as always, Chay, to be chatting to you.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed that one, Mark.
Excellent. And, well, let's finish this just as Wrexham finished at Barnet with a late appearance by Jay Harris and his Hollywood send-off.
This is Jay Harris and you're listening to Dragonheart Radio.